Mr. President of the General Conference, Mr. President of the Executive Council, Madam Director General, ladies and gentlemen, representing your various countries, I am speaking to you in particularly painful circumstances, as you have just reminded us. But I wished to be among you after the cowardly and abject attack that took place in my country on Friday evening. My presence here is of great symbolical value. I am at UNESCO, the organization which brings together countries that seek peace and culture. And that's the reason why it was so important, in my view, to come and take part in this conference, to remind everybody of these values and principles, and this determination which, following the barbarity of the Second World War, the aim was to make science, culture, and learning prevail over fanaticism and totalitarianism. I would like to pay tribute to all the signs of friendliness, to all the testimonies of support from the Opera House in Sydney, the Gate of Brandenburg, the Pyramids of Egypt, the Pearl of Orient in China, and the Metropolitan Opera House in New York, with the Marseillaise, which was sung by Placido Domingo. All these places in all your countries were bearing the colors of the French flag, and they expressed the same message of solidarity that was sent to us all. And it was also the same confidence that you wished yet again to express the confidence you have in France's ability to promote these values. What these killers wanted to attack was the very idea of France, its values, its youth, its vitality, its culture, its art of living, by aiming at cafes, at a theater, a stadium. The terrorists, the jihadists, wanted to strike at the heart of a society, our society, your society, where people can meet and exchange views and share, read and celebrate life. They thought, these killers, these cowardly killers, they thought that they would put an end to our cohesion in our towns and cities, which bring together people of all ages, nationalities, social classes, and religions. They also thought that by attacking a Cambodian restaurant, attacking a concert given by an American group, an international football match, in places which are open to people of many different nationalities. 19 of the victims of Friday evening were of different nationalities. They thought that they would reduce the French passion for welcoming the whole of the world, reduce our pride of a country which exchanges with all countries of all cultures. They have already lost that battle, because today, by standing and showing our determination in the face of terror, we want to mark our attachment, our indestructible attachment to liberty and to the dialogue between cultures, the opposite of obscurantism, fundamentalism, fanaticism, and radical Islamism. History has taught us that it's always the totalitarians and the integralists, the fundamentalists, who forbid music, who forbid books, who destroy our heritage and try to get rid of the memories of those who preceded them. And if we are at war today against jihadist terrorism, not a confrontation of civilizations, because these assassins do not represent a civilization at all. Our response must be merciless, and both abroad and at home. It is aimed at those who have masterminded this in Syria and their representatives and accomplices in other parts of the world, including France. You don't fight against terrorism by hiding, by forgetting your values, by suspending your economic and social life, by stopping your cultural, social, and economic life, by forbidding concerts, plays, sports competitions. No, we will not give in to terrorism by suspending our way of life. We will give nothing up. That's why, after the mourning and the emotions, France, with dignity, will know how to cope with this by remaining herself. And Paris will remain the city of theaters, cinemas, museums, and living entertainment, living arts. Culture will always be in France. The living arts in France are alive. The cinemas will continue to welcome a broad audience because all the museums will be open again in order to allow visitors to discover the marvelous heritage that we have. France is an open country and will remain so, open to all the arts, to all forms of music, to all forms of creativity, to all audiences, people of the youth of France, which was so badly affected, injured, and killed on Friday night, will be the most ardent defenders of this liberty and of this view of life together, of living together. Where better to say this, to assert this requirement that we must stick to our course than this building here, the UNESCO building, an institution which was born of the will to bring humanity together through education and culture, and which chose Paris as its headquarters, to locate its headquarters. Yes, UNESCO is humanity's moral conscience, and what it has established is the promotion of the diversity of cultures, the diversity based on the idea that culture brings men and women together, links people and men and women to their territory, to their history. It is embedded in the recognition of the equal dignity of all cultures, each people having a unique message to convey to the world. The diversity which refuses uniformization and promotes plurality of opinions and of beliefs. A diversity which turns education into a lever for universal emancipation. That's the reason why the Convention of 2005 on the diversity of cultural expressions, whose 10th anniversary we are celebrating, is so important in our view. By emphasizing that cultural assets reflect value and meaning, this convention recognized the sovereign rights of states to support artistic creation and not to turn culture into a market, into a commercial market. That's why France has always refused that audiovisual services should be included in the transatlantic pact being negotiated between the United States and France, and we will remain vigilant in this regard. This battle in favor of diversity and the cultural exception also needs to be continued at a time when the digital revolution is changing the conditions and economic terms and conditions of creation. France will defend the application of the principle of technological neutrality and wants the Convention of 2005 to apply also to digital works. This is the necessary prerequisite to protect copyrights and the rights of authors and creators. I have also come to speak to you here today to defend our heritage, the works which we have in common, which we have inherited from our past, from history. These works, which can also be the victims of terrorism. UNESCO, in 1972, drew up a list of UNESCO heritage sites. Over 1,000 sites are classified, are recognized as UNESCO heritage sites, 41 of which are in France. Though these are targets for those who want to annihilate the memories of different peoples. I'm thinking of the Buddha in Babylon, or the temples of Angkor, or Palmyre. It's always the same attempt of totalitarians to want also to affect the memories of peoples. The fanatics attack living symbols, and they also attack the heritage of the past, humanity of the past, the humanity of today and of tomorrow, but also the humanity of the past. And yet we come from that humanity. The terrorists want to efface everything, youth, culture, life, and at the same time, history and memory. UNESCO plays an important role, a major role, in preserving these assets, these common assets. UNESCO issues alerts before it's too late. They warn us before destruction takes place. And UNESCO also fights against the trafficking in works of art and works from antiquity. But UNESCO does even more than that, and I would like to thank the Director General. She is participating in the restoration of sites which have been destroyed and damaged in Afghanistan, Iraq, Mali. And I remember our visit with the Director General of UNESCO, Mrs. Bukova. We went to Timbuktu when the city was liberated, and we observed that the mausoleums had been damaged and manuscripts had been destroyed. And it is very much your honor and your responsibility to make sure that at the same time as we returned Mali to its territorial integrity, we could also restore what had been destroyed or damaged. France has always been at UNESCO's side. We have placed our skills and resources at the service of restoring sites. 70 projects over 20 years have been completed. And we can also act even in the Near and Middle East. Following the destruction of archaeological sites in Syria and Iraq, which caused considerable sadness and emotion, notably in Palmyra, where the former curator preferred to remain on the spot, and he knew what he was exposing himself to, and he was decapitated by the people of Daesh, the executioners of Daesh, who also committed irreparable damage to the site. So in the face of this emotion, I asked the president of the Louvre Museum, Jean-Luc Martinez, to propose an action plan, and I have just received this action plan. There are 3 priorities which I would now like to propose to UNESCO. And France will commit itself to these 3 priorities. The first priority is the fight against the trafficking in cultural goods. At this very moment, Daesh, the terrorist organization, is delivering permits to excavate. They are collecting taxes on goods, on assets, which will be sold on the black markets, which are also used for money laundering. So France has decided to introduce customs controls over the imports of cultural assets, and we will transpose into our domestic law the UN resolutions which forbid illegal transport of such goods. The second priority will be to prevent the goods being transported to fall into the hands of these terrorists. France will provide safe havens for threatened cultural assets to be protected. If museums who are facing threats of terrorism and who wish to put their collections in safe places, we will provide. The right to asylum exists for human beings, and the right to an asylum must be recognized even in the most painful circumstances which we are witnessing today. But works of art also have a right to asylum, the global heritage, the world heritage. So the law will include the proposals that the Minister of Culture is drafting a bill currently on this. France will provide assistance, will provide help to safeguard cultural assets, including temporary shelter for these works, these cultural assets. And the third priority is to preserve the memory of these sites. Over the last 20 years, France has earmarked 170 million euros to the protection of the heritage in the Near and Middle East. Today, my country has a host to over 400 Syrian scholars and scholars from Iraq as well, who are working in the cultural sphere. And even in the difficult circumstances of today, I want France to be able to welcome more Syrian archaeologists and Syrian researchers so that they can continue their work. Similarly, France will contribute to the digitization of archaeological sites, mapping of sites, inventories of collections, in order, in 3D, to be able to preserve the patrimony, the heritage, which has been damaged, so to preserve the trace of the heritage of the past. I've asked the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Fabius, the Minister of Culture, to mobilize the European Commission so that Europe can harmonize its laws regarding controls over imports, export certificates, as recommended by UNESCO. We talk a lot about tax havens, and we're right to wish to get rid of them, but we must also eliminate the havens where stolen goods are protected. Preserving the humanities heritage is a great cause, and we must coordinate all our efforts, pool our resources in order to preserve the memory of humanity. But we must also form partnerships with the private sector in order to make sure that public money isn't the only money that is allocated to such activities. I think we need to establish a single international body which will collect donations and create an international fund dedicated to endangered cultural assets. Everything I've just proposed, on the basis of this action plan, I suggest that UNESCO should be able to take an initiative to create an international instrument that would guarantee the full implementation of these commitments. UNESCO was established 70 years ago after a period of tragedy and barbarity. The basic principle of UNESCO may have seemed utopian. Wars are born in man's mind. Therefore, it's in man's mind that we must develop the defense of the peace. What can defend peace? Those were the principles that founded UNESCO. Today, 70 years on in Paris, it's in the name of a country that has been attacked, a country that is going through an ordeal, that I would like to express my feelings. More than ever, we must refuse fear, division, and hatred, and opt for life, culture, sharing, and respect and dignity. To the barbarity of terrorists, we must oppose the invincible humanity of culture. As André Malraux used to say, culture has turned man into more than an accident of nature. Culture. That's what France is fighting for today. Thank you.